Hey, guys, it's showtime for another edition of Why Come Japan. You want to turn that down? I can restart the intro.
My heart skipped like a beat there for a moment.
Well, I don't know. You got to do the fucking intro that way.
I'm an old man. Please, don't try to put
All right,
like
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. One of these days, I'm going to give one of my guests like a heart attack.
You always scare me
like
too.
I scare you too? Well, isn't that what you have to do on YouTube? You have to like.
I'll take what he's taking.
The first 5 seconds are really important.
Like usually you just sound like an ant, but suddenly you just sound like a tiger.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I felt like an antelope. I tell you, I was caught. Go for it again. I'm sorry. Please.
All right. Let's stay in. Staying in.
Why come Japan?
Hey, it's showtime for another edition of Why Come Japan. I'm your host, Mr. Radrey, where I introduce creatives inside or outside of Japan. Today on our show is a very special guest. Very special.
Very special. That's what they call me when they put me in that special class.
There we go. He needs no introduction, or maybe you do. I'm not sure. I don't think I could go around public and mention the word Hikosaemon and people know who that is.
No,
I don't know. You're not the next PewDiePie.
I'm not.
Or maybe.
Not. Well, PewDiePie's in for a rocky future if that's the case. But yeah, yes. I mean, my subscribers are gradually dying of old age, but there are still a few of them out there.
So we have Hikosaemon, YouTuber, YouTube specialist, attorney at law, or I don't know. What monikers do you want to use?
What moniker? Earthling.
Earthling. Citizen of Earth.
Yeah, easy guy.
Easy guy. Okay, well, that's a good one. I like that. Very special guest on the show, guys. I've been wanting to get you on the show for some time because, I don't know, you're probably one of the first YouTubers I ever met, along with, maybe you remember the video we made together with former guest on the show, Taisha Jason, and Cruxay, who doesn't make videos anymore.
Yeah, and Atomic Boy X, right?
Atomic Boy X, that's correct. Right?
Yeah. I remember that. And you were at Temple at that time, right? You were still
That was Temple. That was in January 2009, 10 years ago.
You were just a baby.
Was it? I don't know. I was 21. Now I'm 31. My, how time flies.
Does indeed.
All right, so on this show, well, I guess I kind of have to have a structure, or I want to have a structure because I don't know. What is it? Why come Japan? Those words, or like just asking, like, why did you come to Japan? It's starting to become one of these things for foreigners, like how you're never supposed to talk about religion or politics, or sex or whatever. It's starting to become one of those, or at least with some people. Some people they don't like that question. Yeah, but. That being said, I'm hoping... Oh, wait, I guess I should debrief my guest. Do you mind me asking why you came to Japan? Well, I guess you're on the show, so I don't really need...
I'm sorry, are you asking me?
Yeah, all right, okay.
Or a statement?
I guess it's more of a statement.
Okay, you're telling me.
Okay, so...
You ask the questions.
It's not really a question, I guess... Okay, I'm going to go through... Interview. Yeah, right? Best interview. 5 stars. Would meme again. All right, so I want to with this show. I kind of like
relax.
I'm relaxed. Don't worry, I got some green tea here. Oh, well, sometimes like when you do the show, your thoughts are all over the place.
Yeah, I have no thoughts.
You lots of them. All right. Yeah. Now, I want to go through your timeline a bit.
Yeah.
Or through your Japan's saga or saga, whatever you want to do. Feel free to interrupt. Now, based upon the time I've known you. This is what I know about your story.
Okay.
So you're part Australian. You're born in New Zealand, or were you born in Australia?
No.
No.
I was born in New Zealand.
Okay, Auckland.
Near Auckland, yeah.
Okay.
Small country town.
Country town. Okay.
A Special Forces Army base.
Oh, really? Okay, that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you studied Japanese in high school, but you failed.
Eventually I failed. It took years of practice to fail, but I failed at university entrance for Japanese. And then I took it at university anyway, and then I failed in my third year of university. So I majored in Spanish.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you still speak Spanish?
Yo no puedo recordar nada.
Okay, so you studied Spanish, but then eventually you came to Japan because Japan at the time was like the second largest economy, and you weren't particularly interested in going to the USA because it was too far.
So more than that, the thing about Japan is that it's got, it's the same size as New Zealand, it's the same shape as New Zealand. It's very similar to New Zealand. The thing is that there's like 120 million people here, and New Zealand, at the time I left, only had like 4 million people, and 60 million sheep. And as much as, they're nice, I like them. New Zealand does have the most attractive sheep in the world. They are the cutest. We've got all different kinds. They're kind of cuddly. They keep you warm at night. But, I wasn't really interested in sheep-related career opportunities. And so I was looking elsewhere, and I thought, Japan looks good. They don't have so many sheep.
You weren't into anime or...
No, so there is a kind of a breakdown I've given before on the generations coming to Japan.
Oh, right. You mentioned this on the ALT Insider podcast. I remember this.
Yeah, you had in the 50s and the 60s, it was sort of, the 50s, it was all missionaries. It was basically sort of Catholic priests and so on coming and setting up schools and stuff like that. And then you had like the Zen Buddhists and so on, the people coming for Eastern religion. And then you had like the martial artists, like in the sort of 70s. And then in the bubble, people came for the money. Mm-hmm. People coming to make a quick buck to being the only English teacher in the city.
And that was Give Me a Break Man, former guest on the show.
That was Give Me a Break Man. He was in the money phase. And then the market got flooded with Japanese student New Zealanders and Australians. Victor blames us for devaluing the teacher market. So there was no money left in Japan around 1990, like when the bubble collapsed. So basically it was just guys like me here chasing women. And there was like a decade of, foreign guys coming to Japan to chase women. And then I was on...
that was your motivation?
Well, I had a fiance when I came to Japan.
Oh, okay. This I didn't know.
I came honestly, but, we broke up right after I arrived, which was like the most awesome thing that ever happened. And then, like a few years after me, it became the anime phase. And what's funny is how every generation is like the antithesis of the generation before it.
Right.
So you know what I mean? It's like the Catholics can't stand the people who came for Eastern religion after them. The Eastern religion Buddhist people can't stand the karate guys who came after them. The karate guys can't stand the guys who came for money. The guys who came for money can't stand the guys who came for no money but chasing women. And the guys who came for chasing women can't stand the anime people. But, it's kind of funny. There's this natural rhythm with how the generations have flowed. I don't know what it's changing to now. Now it seems to be like beards, and I can't even keep up anymore. I think we're going post-weeboo at the moment.
It's post-weeboo? Wouldn't you just say it's tourists now?
Well, pretty much. I mean, but a lot of those tourists are going to stay, and I don't know. Maybe we're going to be less niche with the next round. But whatever it is, they're going to be people who are going to really wind up all of the anime crowd, I think. So whatever the antithesis of an anime fan is, will be the next generation.
Could you say that because in Japan you have a different set of years? Yeah. So the Heisei year is kind of the anime phase. Or when did that start?
Heisei started like in '89, so it was the end of the bubble. So it was money, women, and then anime.
Okay, so that's a good time stamp.
Yeah.
I see. So you had a fiance. Was your fiance Japanese at the time?
Yeah. That was.
Okay. So you kind of mingled the Japanese culture when you were in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Before you came.
We shacked up. So I was living with her for 4 years in New Zealand, and outside before we lived together, I worked in a Japanese company in New Zealand. So outside of university, I was speaking Japanese all the time. And when my girlfriend came back to Japan before me, I was for a year living in a place in an apartment, like a share house, where there were like 12 Japanese guys and me, and there was no TV antenna, so the only TV was Japanese TV, like videos. So I was kind of in a little Japan world outside of my classes in New Zealand. So it was good preparation for coming over and working in Japanese companies. I really wanted to get away from the sheep. That was pretty much the motivation.
Okay, I guess Japan is probably a bit more accessible than probably, let's say, the Philippines or China or Korea, probably at that period in time. Probably the cleanest place in Asia. Oh boy, that was racist.
Well, I mean, the streets are probably the cleanest today. Singapore gives it a run for its money, but Singapore really seemed up during the 90s. But yeah, so I lived in Singapore when I was a kid. So I actually was in it for the Chinese. I wanted to learn Chinese.
Singapore. I forgot about Singapore.
Yeah. I moved house. I'm in my 37th house. I grew up moving house every year. So I was like, and part of that was there was a patch living in Singapore. Half the time was in Australia. So it was like, and when I was in Singapore, that was like the only exotic part of growing up. And that was, I lived in a, Singapore is not all Chinese, right? There's like Indian neighborhoods, Arab neighborhoods, expat neighborhoods. But I lived in the middle of a Singaporean army camp, which is in the middle of a real hardcore Chinese district. So I always wanted to learn Chinese. But now in New Zealand, everyone's learning Chinese. No one learns Japanese anymore. But in my day, I wanted to learn Chinese, but the government was kind of telling everybody to learn Japanese to sell all our lamb and whatnot. So, yeah, I got thrown in Japanese class. So I figured I can at least learn kanji. And then I discovered that they only taught hiragana for the first 3 years. They didn't know how to calibrate the lessons. Like, the idea of learning a non-European language was sort of new for New Zealand. When I did it, we were like the guinea pigs.
Right.
So they made it too easy, which was great, but it meant I was doomed for failure at university when we actually had proper education about it. But yeah, it was my original choice was to actually learn Chinese, and it was just along the way I discovered that Japan was actually pretty cool.
What made it cool? Just accessibility, or?
Well, no. Again, the New Zealand government. Well, we got kicked out of like.
Oh, I see. So it was the New Zealand government that was the main
the
motivator.
Government. Well, the government set things up that I kind of didn't have a choice. So you know how like New Zealand got kicked out of like Britain basically. We used to just make everything for Britain. So Britain was like our EU, and when Britain went to join the EU, we got kicked out. We didn't get to vote or anything. They just said, "Dude, you're not allowed to sell anything to us anymore." So the country went bankrupt and collapsed, and we had to figure out who to sell all our stuff to. So the government decided everybody learn Japanese and sell to Japan. And the government set up all these sister city exchanges, all these school exchanges. Every school had an adjacent school in Japan, and they would send exchanges every year. So I got sent to Fukuoka, and I was on school exchanges and stuff. So yeah, I was in 15. I had no intention of coming to Japan and no particular interest in Japan. But when I went to Fukuoka when I was 15, and I had a Japanese host family, and I hung out, and it was like, oh yeah, Japan's kind of cool too. And somewhere along the line, I realized I actually quite liked Japan. And then I failed Japanese.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing led to another, and then boom, 20 years later, you're stuck here.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, the alternative is going back. Because New Zealand's a nice place, but I don't know what I'd do if I went there.
How often do you go back there?
Well, my dad now lives in Thailand. My mum was in Australia, so my sister lives in the UK, so I don't have much family there. In like 20 years, I've only been back like 3 or 4 times. I've lost my right to vote, so I don't have much connection anymore. Yeah, they cut you off if you leave the country for 3 years.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Is it kind of like how it is in Australia? Do they force you to? I mean, I guess because I have a few friends.
Voting. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Australia has mandatory voting, but it's not mandatory if you're an expat, right?
I don't know how that works, actually. Yeah, I mean, honestly, have you seen who they have to vote for? I mean, poor bastards. Australian politicians.
What's his name? Turnbuckle or something? Turnbull?
I mean, the whole system there. I mean, again, I realize that we look like the same thing to everybody else. My sister and my mum are Australian, right? I'm half Australian. So, some of my best friends are Australian, but, man, they're different. And their politics is like the worst part of Australia. The voting there. I wouldn't want the vote there. I mean, New Zealand's kind of like, honestly, you check in and people are like arguing about, fishing and speeding tickets and stuff. There's nothing really controversial or exciting in New Zealand. But man, Australia is just
no needles and strawberries.
Oh, actually, we did have some, but they were sent from Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I heard about that story. I don't know too much about it, but
strange people. Everywhere's got strange people, though. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So basically, you became a attorney at I guess you said you can talk about old jobs.
Yeah.
So what was the transition from? Because obviously, I remember watching several videos of yours where you talked about learning Japanese.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Back when you Back when nothing was competing for your attention.
Oh,
now
wow.
everything's competing for your attention. Yeah. It's like, well, what do I watch today? And it's just like, it's like it's almost gives me a headache looking at my subscription feed. I mean, I guess there's so many transitions I could go into here. That's why you made my chan.
That's right. I tried to make your subscription feed more manageable, but we'll come to that. No. So now I'm trying to remember now. You watched a video.
I was talking about your transition from, because I digress. I remember watching several videos of yours where you were learning how to speak Japanese, and you're in Osaka, and you spent only time with Japanese people, and you really...
Oh, yeah.
Then you eventually got N1. The Wonder Years. And then eventually got, for, I guess, our audience out there who doesn't know what N1 is, but I'm sure everybody knows who lives in Japan. N1 is the Japanese language placement test, which is the highest level, which is a very, very, very hard test to pass.
Yeah.
Because they ask kind of these real... Well, what kind of questions do they ask in there? Because I remember asking Tokyo Sam about this a long time ago. Yeah. And he just had like some of the most... how would you describe it? Like, these questions were very...
It's like there's a European swallow and an African swallow flying at 500...
Well, no, you've taken it. You've taken it. What kind of questions do they ask on there?
Oh, the way I always look at it, and by the way, I took it when it was JLPT 1 and JLPT 2, and so the NLPT, which replaced it, has come in, and there was always a huge jump from level 2 to level 1, and I took level 2 and level 1 under the old system. Under the new system, the new N1, N2, N3, N2 kind of sits in the middle of where in level 1 and level 2 used to be. So there used to be, the way it kind of works is, so level 2, after working in a Japanese company and living in Japan for a year, I could pretty much rock up, cram before, a couple of days before the test, and comfortably get through, not a great score, but enough to pass on the level 2.
Okay.
But also level 2, and level 2 is just proof that you can kind of survive day to day in Japan, without a translator pretty much. So I could work in a company. It pretty much is just proof I could do what I did. I could watch the TV. I could, go on a date. I could, go at work. I might have a dictionary nearby, but I could survive. The thing about level 1, though, level 1 always has had the place in Japan of being the only level that had any meaning, because that was the level that you would use to get into a Japanese university. And what it was proof of, it was proof that you had learned Japanese to a point that you were at the same level as a, final year of high school Japanese person.
Okay.
So basically, whereas level 2 is always kind of proof that you're like a regular person, like any Japanese person, would basically typically be comfortable on level 2.
Right.
Level 1 on N1 or JLPT 1 represents basically the peak of Japanese study and cram learning that any Japanese person will be in their own entire lives, right? Because the only time they really cram learn is to get into university. And the way that it works is where L2 is all about everything that will come up that you'll see in a newspaper, that you'll hear in a conversation. It's all about the most used Japanese words, like out of the 2,000 kanji, it's the 1,000 most used. Level 1 is all of the least used kanji. So basically, you can live in Japan, but it won't be any preparation for L1 unless you're specifically, because it's designed to be the hardest exam for Japanese people. It's what the level 3 grammar and English that native speakers do. So basically, you can read the newspaper and not be prepared for L1, because L1 is full of the weird, exceptional, historical, archaic, weird stuff. And all that you can do, it's basically... And everyone over-focuses on the kanji and stuff like that, which is easy to cram learn, but then you've got the comprehension and the other stuff as well. But basically, it's just you have to cram learn by rote memory. There's no it's all the illogical exceptions, all that sort of stuff. And it takes months to cram learn just all the volume of stuff that's in there. And the thing is, I got it, and it's great to get that piece of paper, which I can say I can work at the same level as a normal Japanese person, like certified. But frankly, there's nothing that you learn in level 1 really that ends up being practical for any purpose after you've got it. But it is a really valuable piece of paper. So it was worth, if you want to make a life in Japan, it's worth the sacrifice and pain of studying for and getting that piece of paper, because it's kind of like objective proof that you can hold out, that will differentiate. It's rare among native English speakers. Chinese people and Korean people get it all the time.
Right.
Once you've got it, it's kind of valuable to the extent that if you want to prove to someone that you are, if you've got 50 people competing for a job, chances are only 1 or 2 of them are going to have level 1. So you immediately beat the other 48 people, and then you're on equal terms. You're only competing against the other people that have L1. The other thing is that with people who have L1, a lot of them are like people who just studied the language. So this is the other thing. If you've got anything else other than the language skill, and you add the L1 to it, then all of a sudden all the doors open up in Japan, and you've got no competition in the world's second biggest economy. Well, I say not no competition. It's a really small pond when it comes to people who can actually operate locally, like fully, who aren't trapped in pure expat roles, who also have a viable extra skill. So for me, that was always the thought. I could have a law degree in New Zealand, where I had to be competing against all my classmates who's still now out in the law firm world, or I could go to America, which has millions of lawyers, all much smarter and better lawyers than me. Or I could come to Japan and actually be kind of really good at the cross-cultural thing and be and be able to do really interesting work. By combining that with the skill that I have, rather than trying to go to America and beat all the Americans at being a lawyer, it didn't really. It's like with DJing as well. I used to DJ as a hobby, and it was sort of like I like house music, but you come to Tokyo and every club plays nothing but house music, and all the house DJs are really good and really popular. And the idea of coming and starting DJing on house music and becoming more popular than the million DJs in Tokyo, for me, it was always more interesting to focus on something like drum and bass or break beats or something like that, which I enjoyed. And as much as I liked house, I thought, well, you might as well be good at something where you can stand out, where you don't have to beat out 10,000 other people that are better than you. For me, this was another appeal. The fact that, particularly when I came here, it was still relatively rare for foreigners. Most foreigners would come and would leave within 3 years. The vast majority wouldn't even learn any Japanese or only rudimentary Japanese. So to have a trade and to be proficient at Japanese and to be sort of committed to the idea of living here, even within the very small community of expats here, it put you in an even smaller group. So it made a lot of things really, really interesting, and it opened up doors and gave me experiences I wouldn't have had a chance to get. I don't think even if I'd been in America or New Zealand or anywhere else.
Right. Well, okay. That was not the explanation I was hoping to get about N1. I was just more looking for what kind of questions did they ask? But
it was also when you prepare. I can't remember because I've actually psychologically blocked out that entire section of my life. But
great test, huh?
But all that you can do for that test, because all it is rote learning, and there's no logic to it either. And you can read all these books and take all these courses, but it's pointless. What you should do is you can go to any bookstore and get the previous year's exams and just take practice exams over and over. There's only about 8 or 9 patterns to every question.
God damn.
But just take the exams over and over. Honestly, practice, take it. The other thing is that with the reading comprehension, the pacing is really important. You have to move really fast. And if you screw that up, you'll give away that whole section. So in terms of how to prepare and pass, flashcards and practice exam taking and do it over and over and start preparing at least 3 or 4 months early.
Damn, okay.
I failed that exam 2 or 3 times. The first time I walked up, no preparation, just to see how I'd go, and it was a disaster. And then the second year I kind of studied some more, but I really appreciated after the second time that, geez, I've got to take time off work and really block this out. And I spent 3 or 4 months solidly studying, but it's worth it. I tell you what, the doors it opens up, it's worth getting it, but get it early.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, because what I remember, or at least I can't remember. I think it was Sam who told me, Hiko-san, that he said that there's these ridiculous questions on there, ones that are meant to trick you. They're meant to be trick questions. Normally if any kind of test, they're trying to trick you on purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I guess if
questions,
questions like, what color is the sky? Blue, dark blue, light blue, all shades of blue. Yeah, sky colored. That sort of thing. What kind of a question is that?
But all the more reason why, honestly, I remember that as well. The questions didn't make sense, but the great thing is, at least when I did it, they would recycle the questions every few years. So practice exams was the best way to do it, and marking yourself and learning the ones where you make the mistake, and you kind of just memorize all the trick questions. I don't think, of course you can become such a scholar of Japanese that you actually deeply understand every question inside out, but honestly, I didn't have the 20 years of preparation to do that, so I suggest the way that I eventually figured out how to do it that got me over the line, it was just a lot of Yeah, rote learning and practice exam taking.
I guess that's eye-opening. No, I guess I teach an exam course at the school that I teach at.
Yeah.
And what I've learned about Japanese entrance exams is a lot of the time they don't, like when it comes to the English section, they only want to see that you wrote something, and a majority of the time the answer is always C.
Oh, yeah, C is what you go for. If you run out of time, just make everything C, yeah. No, that's an old one. I learned that in high school, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's one thing I've learned about tests, but...
Well, and the other thing is that, so this is where I have sympathy for people who are learning English for a qualification purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same when we're learning Japanese for a qualification purpose. Sure, I want to be better at Japanese, but, learning for an exam is not the best way to become a great communicator.
Right, that's what everybody says,
They're completely separate. Even though it's a test for a language, a multi-choice silent test sitting at a desk is not a way that you test someone's language ability. So at the end of the day, they're separate goals, aren't they? Being great at speaking English and being an international communicator and being someone who gets the necessary score on the exam, they're entirely different goals with entirely different ways of achieving them. I mean, if you're super good at either one, you might have a cross benefit of being good at the other. But frankly, it's depressing when we want to teach people to be communicators, but all they need is to pass the exam. And frankly, and you could tell. I mean, I've met people. I'm not saying most people are like this, but you must have met people as well who have really high TOEIC scores. But when you talk to them, it's like, oh my God, how did you get that score?
No, I've never had. Usually, people with high TOEIC scores they usually speak relatively well.
True. There's a general correlation. I interview people, and with TOEIC like requirements. But I must admit, I've met people who, wow, you must have been really good at exam studying, because they can have a TOEIC score of above 900 and not be able to carry a conversation, like to a point I'd have to switch into Japanese because I started to feel sorry. Like, I've had not all the time, but I've seen that happen. So they're totally different things.
Okay, well, again, I think we digressed a bit. I wanted to talk about what was your transition from, I guess, because at first when you came to Japan, like most people, you start off as an English teacher, and then eventually you transitioned into becoming an attorney here in Japan.
Yes and no.
Yes and no? Okay.
Yeah. So I'm easily distracted. And
okay.
So I had a law degree, and I realized, like...
Was this back in New Zealand you had a law degree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was studying in New Zealand, and, the way the system there works is it takes 5 years. And I was, like, paying my own way. So I was, like, working 80 hours a week at this Japanese company while studying on a really, really tough course. And I was like, man, I'm studying, like, more than I would for a job. I'd work for a job. And I'm getting into debt while I'm doing it. Like, in the 4th and 5th year at university, I was kind of like, this sucks. And when
what job was this?
I was working at a souvenir shop, like.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like a retail one for like a college job.
Yeah, it was a college job. It was paying the rent, but it was also letting me practice Japanese because it was all Japanese people working there.
Not bad.
But I was doing that like 70, 80 hours a week while I was studying like the final years of my law degree, and it was kind of like I got sick of university. I wanted to be working, and doing meaningful things with what I was learning and not getting into debt and paying to do assignments that have no relevance in the universe is kind of how I came to see it. So when you graduate, you sort of realize, holy crap, like everyone in my class is graduating, 100 people graduated my class. Everyone's going to go into a law firm and just they're just going to do this forever. They're just going to look at the whole world through nothing but the frame of law. And, I made the decision to start this law degree when I was like 18 years old. In New Zealand, you go straight in. I was kind of like, well, geez, I'm not sure I even want to do that. So the year before I graduated, I came to Japan on a working holiday visa. Mm-hmm. And, the thing is, when you're at law school, the year before you graduate, you have to summer clerk, get some experience somewhere at a law firm. And if you're really smart and popular and good, a top law firm will invite you to come and be a summer clerk. So they've got dibs on you when you go looking for a job when you get out. However, if you are unpopular and not good, you have to basically go and offer to work for free somewhere or, do an internship or something and to get the experience because you want to have at least on your CV that you interned at a law firm. So I had a Japanese girlfriend, so I came to Japan and I basically went through the firms in New Zealand that had a connection to Japan. I said, look, do you have a partner firm in Japan? I'll work for free. If
I'm sure they like free. Everybody likes free shit.
Well, that's what I figured. So
Yeah.
I said I'll work for free if you let me come an intern while I'm in Japan during our summer vacation, which is at the end of the year. So I worked at a patent law firm in Tokyo, but I was working for free. So I had to pay, and I was supporting myself. So I had to pay for my, train and living costs and so on. So basically I would work at the law firm between like 9 a.m. and 4 or 5 p.m. And then I would go to an English school and teach English and get paid for that in the evenings on the way home. So I was getting back to my girlfriend's house, her parents' house I was staying at. It was like 10 or 11 p.m. every night. I was going like basically 8 a.m. to like 11 p.m. every day for this whole summer vacation, working for free at a law firm and teaching English. But the teaching English was fun, and it was supporting me being able to get the experience I needed. But then when I graduated law school, I was like, man, I'm sick of this shit, and I don't know that I want to do this forever. So I came back to Japan, and I got a job at an IT firm. I became an IT consultant.
Oh, really?
And I did that for a few years. So I actually, it's kind of funny. I went to all the trouble to get the law degree, and I was just about to get admitted to the bar and become a lawyer. And I just thought, you know what? Wait a minute. I'm not sure I want in on this, actually. And when the opportunity came up to move to Japan and be an IT consultant, I'm like, that sounds like it might be a lot more interesting. So I'm going to go try that. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go back to being a lawyer. So I actually kind of totally dropped I went to all the trouble to get the law degree, and then I just dropped the whole thing and did something else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So wait, you were IT, and then you went back to being a lawyer?
No.
Wait. I'm having trouble making a connection here.
Yeah. So after I was, so I did the IT thing, which I realized like in the first year sucked. That was really hard work.
Right.
But it was a really good experience. So I promised myself I'd stick it out like for 3 years, no matter what. So while all my co-hires, all my friends are quitting, I was the only non-Japanese hired out of like 90 in the intake that I was in when I got into this consulting company, where I was just basically a programmer and a system builder. And I did that, and it was a good experience. But then I sort of like, I figured when I came out of that, I was like 25 or 26, and I was kind of like, I'm ready to start again. I'm happy to go back to zero. And I was thinking about law, but I was also thinking like, well, I really like, maybe I could be a journalist or something like that. I was looking at that. And this is when, just after 9/11, all the newspapers and everyone stopped hiring. All the media companies shut down after 9/11.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't remember. I was still in I was in middle school when that happened.
Okay.
So.
Well, I was going to apply for Japan Times. I thought about that, and the year that I was planning to do that, they actually cancelled the exams that year. They stopped hiring, as there was a thing where the whole media thing shut down. So I had a friend who worked at a Japanese company where he was like a policy researcher. And he said he was going back to Australia, and he asked me if I wanted his job. And I actually specialized in the area that, like the policy research area that he did was like the area that I specialized in for my law degree. It was like international environmental law. So I was like, okay, well, it's not exactly practicing law, but it's actually like researching law, and it's in my area of specialty. So I went and took over from my friend the second job at a big Japanese insurance company.
Huh.
So I was like,
okay.
I did that for a few years, but because that involved the law and I realized I enjoyed that job, I was like, okay, maybe the law isn't so bad. So I went back to New Zealand. I took the bar exam. I got admitted to the bar. And then I asked, can you move me to the legal department? And they said no. So I went looking at law firms, and I joined an American law firm.
Right. Well, then that must mean you must have passed the bar in Japan? Is that right?
I was living in Japan, but I had to go. Well, I took the bar exam by correspondence course, and I had to fly back a few times to New Zealand to go back and do it, and then take the exam. Actually, I took the exam remotely. That's right. I took the exam from Japan, but for the New Zealand bar. So I'm basically a sheep lawyer. I never took the Japan bar exam.
Oh, okay.
Any sheep-related legal issues, I'm your guy. Seriously. And anyone watching, if you've like lost your sheep or have people have taken them or something, sheep defamation, sheep conversion, anything like that, please, contact me, DM me.
So wait, you're saying this is a real thing? Sheep are a real thing in New Zealand?
Oh, sheep are definitely a real thing in New Zealand. No,
okay.
But that's right. So my qualification is in New Zealand law.
Okay. But basically, you can kind of practice. I guess you can't practice law, or you can give advice.
So it works out in the international firms. If you're a qualified lawyer anywhere, you can practice as an international lawyer. You can practice as a qualified lawyer, and so I joined. I worked in an American firm in Tokyo doing mergers and acquisitions, I just learned the US law and the Japanese law, and I did it as part of my job. Technically, you're supposed to actually practice for 3 years in your home country to get like a special certification, and I didn't want to go back to New Zealand for 3 years, so all I had was the certification, but I didn't have the experience that the Japanese Bar Association needs. So when I became a lawyer, it was okay. They were kind of easy about it, but they got afraid of all these foreign lawyers coming in and taking Japanese lawyer jobs. So they started getting tough on it, which meant that basically it would have got to a point if I'd stayed in the firm that I would have had to get a US qualification and live in the US for 3 years to get the practice experience. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I had the choice of basically either doubling down, trying to become a law firm partner, going and moving to America or New Zealand for 3 years, or staying in Japan and practicing inside a company. So eventually I moved on to a Japanese IT company as a lawyer. So I figured I'd worked in an IT company and I'd been a lawyer, so I could be a Japanese IT company lawyer.
Okay, so that's interesting. I remember listening to one of your videos once, or watching, I don't know what it was. One of those. Back on YouTube when you just throw a video on, you do other things in your room, like cleaning and, catching up on Walking Dead or something. I don't know, that'd be weird, watching Walking Dead while watching, I guess a YouTuber.
Yeah.
I probably just threw you. Maybe I threw you on, and I don't know. I can't remember. Point is,
probably a mistake.
What I remember is that you were talking about the law, and that you said that the law was basically whatever illegal in America is legal in Japan.
I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
Or was the opposite or something? Or I can't remember. That you said something like the rules in America are quite similar to the rules in Japan, or the law.
What? I mean, there are probably situations that's true, but I can't recall saying that. Well, what would that be for? Well,
I don't know. I mean, because sometimes I have these questions about the law in Japan, and I have no idea.
Yeah, I'll make up all the answers, but So I always say when people
you make up all the answers, all right.
Well, so there's this funny thing, when people I get people DM me all the time who know what I do, and they give me legal questions, but of course my specialty is in like corporate stuff. So, in terms of like, my doctor slapped me on the bum or something, or, kind of personal, sort of civil kind of stuff. I got no idea, but I can give people an idea of a good way to go and find the person to go help them. But,
I see.
You sort of learn as you find out the answers to day-to-day questions. I mean, but
okay. Well, because
I'm not allowed to give Japanese law advice technically, at least as a professional.
Are you not allowed to give Japanese law advice?
I'm not a Japanese certified lawyer, so I'm not allowed to give Japanese law advice. Although I can talk about, I can talk about the law like a regular person.
Right. Well, because I mean, growing up as an American, we're always told what our First Amendment right is, or a Second Amendment right is, that where it becomes a thing that everyone knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here in Japan, sometimes for example, fair use, does that even exist here?
No, it doesn't exist here. No. There's no fair use. There's no concept of fair use in Japanese law. Yeah.
So if I put something up from NHK, it's technically, even if it's for parody sake, I can't do that.
Yeah, this is kind of changing, but certainly years and years ago, the thing was that to take legal action casually in Japan, even DMCAing something or doing something like that, is seen as being really extreme in Japanese society. So technically, NHK is more entitled. You could put up a commentary video on a Japanese video. The owner of that copyright is totally entitled to take to do a takedown. And at least under Japanese law, there's no protection. There's no commentary or fair use. But at the same time, they're much less likely to actually do it. So this was always the thing. Back in the day on YouTube, people would post Japanese TV clips all the time, and no one cared. But with the American things, companies are much more ready to make a claim, even a fake claim. But because people are more likely to sue, maybe in America, they offer more protection. So it's kind of funny. I think in the end of the day, you shouldn't ever knowingly violate copyright law or anything like that. But at the same time, you're probably safer doing it in Japan than in America, although, of course, Japan's getting tougher, recently.
Right. Well, I mean, what was it? There's Article 13 in Europe right now. What's the status of that? Yeah, I guess that's more of the internet, isn't it?
Well, so what is it? I think they're making it so that I vaguely remember reading about that. But it's basically going to make it basically super easy for content owners to I think it's going to make platforms like YouTube's going to become liable for even accidentally hosting, unknowingly hosting. So you or I could post something onto YouTube, and then YouTube could get fined or shut down over it. So the idea is it's going to make it too dangerous for sites like YouTube to allow content by regular users to be posted, because they're going to be liable for anything that gets put up.
Right. Well, because I've heard that how it is in Europe is that it's more that they have permitted use.
Yeah.
Opposed to like the U.S. that has like fair use.
Yeah.
That's what I understand.
Yeah. And Chris Otaku says it sounds like it's a bit dead in the water lately. I haven't heard much about it. There was the round of outrage, but yeah, the thing, Europe certainly is really big on protecting. They're more on protecting people trying to make a living, kind of a thing. They're more on protecting who they see as copyright owners, like book writers and authors and stuff like that. And so that's where the philosophy comes from, rather than thinking that everybody has this right to say whatever they like on the internet. Mm-hmm. America's got this anarchic sort of freedom principle. Europe's more about, social fairness. But I think everyone agrees they got it a little bit wrong with that. So I haven't heard what's happened to it, but yeah.
Okay, I see. All right. Okay, so your specialty was more corporate law.
Yeah. I mean, Nothing honestly practical that anyone I know would ever actually have a good reason to ask me about.
Okay, so basically, if I asked you a question about this new, what's his name? Ghosn? Carlos Ghosn?
Carlos Ghosn, yeah.
Carlos Ghosn, thank you. Carlos Ghosn in the news. You wouldn't know anything about criminal law. Or you would know a little bit, or what you've probably read from, like, I don't know what's his name. Jake Edelstein's written about him a little bit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've been trained. I did criminal law at law school. And so here's the thing about law. Bad lawyers and people who don't do law and people who have legal related jobs but aren't lawyers, and bad lawyers all look at law as being like this sort of box of secret knowledge and magic tricks that clever people can use to sort of get you off on a technicality and whatever. And it's a book of technicalities and sort of rules.
It's like Better Call Saul.
Exactly. I love Better Call Saul, by the way. That's a great series.
I like the show too.
But good lawyers, and I've worked with good lawyers. I've had the privilege of working with lawyers who are all smarter than me. And the thing is, the smarter the lawyer is, the more everything they say sounds like absolutely the most
poetic thing.
No, just a no-brainer. No. Just like, how did I not say that myself? A good lawyer you'll give them a complicated problem that you can't work out, and they'll give you an answer that'll just make you slap your forehead and say, why didn't I think of that? Like, of course, it's so obvious and clear. So they just see things really clearly, like little kids could understand complex legal interpretation, which is to say, a good lawyer will break down any problem, even if they don't know the technical rules. The point is, it's always codified on the basis that some smart person is trying to make it what the most common sense outcome is. So whatever feels like common sense, there's going to be some justification for it that you can find. Trying to do something that's not common sense is going to lose, basically, or unless you really got a really kind of weird, rule, or you don't understand it right. So the point is, like, if you ask me a legal question, because I've been trained to take lots of legal questions that I don't know the answer to, but you develop kind of an instinct for what the most likely right answer is and what the best approach to dealing with it is. There's sort of a process that these things get done. So I'm not a criminal law expert. I can't give criminal law advice, but certainly we can talk about law, and I can tell you what's probably a good way to handle a situation, for example. So yeah, I do that sometimes. So with Ghosn, yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? What a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I don't really. Because I don't really know much about the story, because I hate reading articles on the internet nowadays.
Oh yeah, read it.
It's just like
you should put everything to Vines.
Well, because sometimes I have to just go to Wikipedia. It's like I don't want to read about all this. Like, I don't know what it is about
contextualize it for articles. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, contextual. I just want a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't need all this extra like Ghosn has done this and he's done that and he's done this, and I'm like, well, wait, how did this start? It's like today I get all my news. I feel embarrassed saying this, but I get all my news through Philip DeFranco, basically.
Oh yeah, I watch Philip DeFranco. No shit. I was listening to Philip DeFranco 30 minutes before we started this.
Because I think he has a great format to telling the news.
Philip DeFranco is my inspiration for starting YouTube.
Really?
I wanted to be a Japanese version of Philip DeFranco. I failed miserably at it, but I talk about news on my thing. For me, the original thing was I want to try doing that for Japan. That was it. It was Philip DeFranco. So no. I mean, everyone hates him, and I'm supposed to be embarrassed about that. But no,
I don't
I'm
hate him. I'm just saying that that's my source of news because it's just like I don't like. Sometimes I read the BBC, sometimes I read the Guardian or whatever.
But I'm saying that I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we share exceptionally bad taste, and I think that's a great thing. Everyone in the internet may disagree with us. Everyone on the internet disagrees with us, but no, I actually think he's got a great format and a good show. I agree with you completely.
Well, I mean, the thing that's great about him is that he introduces the topic, he tells you what one side says, he tells you what the other side says, and then he finally tells you his opinion. Opposed to like some article that just kind of comes full force out with a bias or an opinion that you're not even really fully aware of that you're reading, you know?
But it's funny. He's practicing an art that used to be what news was by default, and it's disappeared. It's just become this weird talking heads and shit. I'll tell you what, if you are living in Japan and you want to practice Japanese and you want to get a sense of Japanese news, the best news show to watch on Japanese news is the children's news at 6:30 p.m. on Education Channel and NHK2. I discovered there was a time when one of the best news explainers used to in Japan. He started out on that show, and I remember watching that, and it would take, because it's exactly as you say, the Ghosn story is just what happened in the last 24 hours without any context for it. And basically what the children's news thing is, it would take like really difficult issues as well, like banking crises or the Ghosn thing, and it would basically set it all up like you're explaining to like a 10-year-old. Right. And they would do exactly that. They would put, here's the history, here are all the things that were playing into it, here's what's happened now, and here's what people are debating. And they do it, and it's all in easy to understand Japanese, and they'll make it so it's clear and easy to get. And I'm like, wow, this is actually better than the adults' news. And Philip DeFranco does that as well with what he presents, and that's what I kind of try to do on Tokyo Tonight. Exactly, that's what I try to do. I try to take topics and explain what's going on with them. I realize I'm lost in the internet noise now, but that's exactly. I love doing that, and that's what I do. So with Ghosn, I haven't posted a standalone video about Ghosn, although I've talked about him during my show. So I don't know. What do you want to know?
Well, no, I mean, the biggest thing about it is just that I don't really understand the problem. I don't understand what happened. All I know is that it has something to do with the judicial system in Japan. Yeah. I understand that there's some sort of issue with it, and there's some sort of like problem. Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, it seems like it's cruel or something. I can't put the whole story together, and it's just sort of like every article I read, it's just like I can't. It just feels like it's discombobulated. I can't put two and two together.
I can kind of break it down. Do you want the story or do you want the issue?
I mean, the short version.
The short version of the story, or the issue?
The short version of the story. The story.
So the short version of the story is that, so you know how Nissan went bankrupt, like basically went bankrupt. It was about to go out of business and everyone was going to lose their jobs about 15 years ago. All the cars that they were making they were okay cars, but no one was buying them. The Japanese economy was tanking. And they overspent and they couldn't cover the debts anymore. Mm-hmm. And Nissan got bailed out by Renault, which is a smaller company, but they were cash rich at the time, and Nissan was like running out of business. So,
okay. Yeah, I knew he was the CEO of Renault, and I'm like, what? I'm like, how is this? Like, what? Anyway, continue.
So Renault bailed out Nissan and took them over. They bought 45% of their shares and put basically Ghosn in as the guy to come and make Nissan profitable again. Because it was failing as a business. And it's what happens in a lot of Japanese companies. You know how all the buildings are like really ugly in Japan? It's because in Japan, it's really tough to be a designer in Japan, to be a creative person. They're not highly valued. Engineers are highly valued. So a lot of the building and the apartment blocks you see are just designed by engineers, not architects. It's the same with the cars. The car engineers have more of a say in how the cars end up looking. Than designers, that's considered kind of frivolous. So you end up with a lot of these cars that are just very conservative and more the shape is an afterthought to just getting the engineering and so on very good. So the cars become expensive and they're like, So basically Nissan just made a lot of good cars, but they weren't selling it all and they were too expensive and they were making too many models and stuff. So Ghosn came in with an eye to, how do we get this business profitable again? So he cut a whole lot of car lines, which all the engineers hated. It was tough medicine for Nissan. He also went and got some designers in to go and make it to relaunch the old sports cars, like the Skyline and the Fairlady, and to give them new California designs that made them look cool, which, again, everything was sort of a fight. And the other thing which he did was he went and broke up, in Japan, how they've got all these family chains of companies where it's like, you know, all the suppliers are all like, you know, they're owned by the companies that they supply. So basically, nobody's like fighting for their lives. Everybody's got very comfortable, cozy relationships, and there's no reason to like try to save cost. So all the parts for every Nissan car were like super expensive because they were all in companies that were like, you know, basically guaranteed business from Nissan. So when Ghosn came in, what he did was he cut off all the relationships with the suppliers and said, from now on, only the cheapest company will get to be our supplier. And we're going to reduce the suppliers from like 1,000 suppliers to like 100 suppliers, and they have to be the cheapest, and we're going to make them compete every year. So that was like, you know, flipping over the table from a Japanese perspective. He came in, he cut all these car lines, he redid these car lines. So there was a lot of people like complaining to newspapers, like this Gaijin's coming in, he's ruining Nissan. But lo and behold, Nissan became profitable again. And now it's just recently it overtook Toyota. It's the biggest car company in the world now, and it's way bigger than Renault, the company which owns 45% of its shares and bailed it out. It's actually become, and Ghosn personally sort of adopts the credit. Look at what I did, and he assumes that everyone must be really appreciative that he saved their jobs and stuff like that. The problem is essentially what's happened. Two things were happening. One, Nissan kind of started to feel when it got back on its feet. It's actually a company like 3 times bigger than Renault in terms of revenue and sales and all that sort of stuff. But yet Renault was kind of in this controlling thing where they appoint the boss. And so Nissan, when they got back on their feet, they kind of resented having this little French company bossing them around, telling them what to do. And they wanted to get out from under that. And there was apparently a rumor that, you know, Ghosn, who's the president of Mitsubishi Motors, Nissan, and Renault all at the same time, there was this plan that was apparently happening that Renault was going to put them all together into one company and become the president of all three, like being a merged single company. And apparently the Nissan execs, they found out about that and they panicked, so they tried to basically hatch a plan to get rid of him. On top of that, the way that they plan to get rid of him, in Japan, the other dimension of this is that Japanese really hate people getting paid too much money. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. Have you noticed this at all? Japanese are like,
yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, I work for a company that hates paying people. But anyway, yeah.
But you know this idea how, like in America, like people, there are lots of people who think Trump's great because he's rich. They think he's rich because he's successful, he's good, he's earned that money, and I want to earn that money
like it
too.
is.
All that sort of stuff. You know, he's a successful businessman. But there's this idea, this dream of being the rich guy, right? So there's not this idea that, you know, people resenting other people's success. There's this idea, no, I want to be the rich guy. And people should get paid what they're worth. In Japan, there's an idea it's more socialist. It's like, you know, it's not really, you know, the boss shouldn't be getting too much money. You know, you shouldn't get paid according to the value that you could create. You should be getting paid what's fair. You know, and people care about what other people get paid. So it's like most execs in big listed Japanese companies in America, a CEO or a C something will normally get paid millions of dollars basically per year. You know, right. Shareholders approve it. In Japan, like for listed companies, the maximum those guys make is like $200,000 or $300,000 maximum. Huh. And I've done M&As of famous named Japanese companies, like big global brand Japanese companies, with guys on the top executive boards getting less than $200,000. You know, like that are in the news. So in America, you know, so Ghosn's getting paid a salary of, what was he getting? He was getting like 10 million or something. But if he was like in France, even 10 million was a completely unacceptable salary by Japanese standards. And if he was in France, he would have been getting like 80 million. But he was, you know, but everyone explained, we can't pay you that much money in Japan because people hate it. You're already on thin ice. So they figured out this way to hold back his pay and agree to give it to him later, to give him the extra 60 million later. And basically, the Japanese, apparently, the guys in Nissan, when they found out that he was getting 10 million, people hated him just for that, let alone the fact then they found out the plan that he was going to get, you know, a payment later on for all this money that they were holding back. That alone was actually enough to tank him. In the eyes of Nissan, they just decided to basically investigate him and find a whole lot of charges that they turned over to the police to get him arrested, which stopped the merger happening, and it got rid of him. So it was just an internal sort of, assassination.
And he's still there today, right?
Yes, and there's the problem. And so the issue is, part of the issue is how it was handled, but the main issue that's getting more raised now is that if you get arrested by the police in Japan, if you get detained by the police, if they take you in and they think you did it, even if you didn't, you are screwed completely.
Right. Well, conviction rate's like 99.9% or something.
That is correct. So it's like if you, in most countries, so when I did criminal law in New Zealand, and we study America, Britain, Canada, those countries as well, you know, we all kind of look at each other's laws. There's this
Right.
idea of if even if you're guilty, if I detain you for like shoplifting, and I'm the police and I'm questioning you for like more than 72 hours for like more than 3 days, and you hold out and you don't admit and you don't admit, and then after like 72 hours you break down and you say, okay, it was me, I did it, and you write a confession. In court, any confession given after more than like 72 hours detention is presumed to be under duress. There's this idea that if you've been held in detention for 3 days, that you're going to be broken. You're not going to be rational. And if you say later on, yeah, I just wanted to get out of the questioning, it was just too much, the court will take that seriously, and it will be on the police to prove that it was fairly taken. So basically, the police are not allowed to hold you without charging you for more than 3 days. In Japan, they can hold you for weeks, and when the clock runs out, they can just put another charge and detain you again and never let you out of the jail. And this is what happened. Ghosn's been in questioning basically for nearly 3 months. I think he's past 2 months now, and he's held out the entire time. He hasn't admitted anything. He's been consistent that no, I didn't do any of the things that you said I'm doing. And the prosecutors are just trying to hold him, hoping that he'll confess, because if he confesses, then they don't have to investigate anymore, and then they get their 99% conviction rate. But the thing is, it's highlighted that most countries, most developed countries, you can't hold a person for more than 3 days. In Japan, you can legally hold someone and detain them and question them for months. And this happens. This isn't just special for Ghosn. This happens to everybody, but no one cares when it's a regular Japanese person. But when it's a famous international CEO, it's causing the world's media to shine a light on how Japan kind of has third world standards for the way that in terms of your civil rights, if you're detained by the police.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's getting criticized over that. And on the one hand, I mean, it's a scary time to be a CEO with a salary of $80 million, you could say. In a way, it's like, well, why are we making a big deal only because it's a big, rich, famous guy when this happens to everybody? But as far as I'm concerned, they're highlighting an issue that applies as much to a homeless Japanese person as it does to Ghosn. Either could be in the same situation. So yeah,
Wow.
that's the issue.
Well,
sorry, that wasn't.
No. Thank you for explaining that to me, because that was like an itch I couldn't scratch. Because it was just sort of like there's just so much information out there. I had no idea about the history and like the background about that. I mean, yeah.
Yes, happy to scratch.
That was yeah.
So uncomfortable.
Well, I don't know. I mean, don't tell me you don't never get itches you don't want scratched.
Oh, of course. I pretty much just do a live stream every week where I just like scratch myself for an hour.
Is that why you do that live stream? That's actually one of my questions. I want, like, why you just started the Tokyo Tonight? Because you just sort of like, because sometimes you see the news and you kind of want to know how to interpret the news.
I like sharing. Well, I like doing this. It's part of my job is to get random information and make it understandable and package it up and express it. And expressing is part of how I process it anyway. And I find this stuff interesting. I was political science major as for my arts. I did political science and Spanish. So I love the news. I wanted to be a journalist myself for a time. If I hadn't been a lawyer, I would have tried to be a journalist. So I love the news. I love Japanese news. I also find that Japanese news is often not well reported and not well understood, and it's interesting. So I like to understand it and be able to explain it to people who want to know, which is a very small niche of people. I think you're like 10% of that entire market. But yeah, to the extent anyone wants to hear it, it's a small group, but it's a pretty good group of people who seem to show up and allow me indulge me talking about it every week, and I'm happy to do it.
Have you ever considered turning Tokyo Tonight into a podcast you can listen to on iTunes, or is that too much trouble?
It's too much trouble, but I've considered it.
It really is, yeah. I don't know.
And you know what? I don't understand how it is so easy to post a full video and how difficult it is just to post the soundtrack of that video. Like,
yeah,
it's completely illogical, isn't it? Like, it's less data storage. It should be. I don't understand why Google doesn't have a podcast equivalent of YouTube that anyone can just post audio podcasts to. I mean, it's basically just YouTube without the video, and I would love to. And I actually did it. I've got a pro account on SoundCloud, and I uploaded just the audio tracks of my shows a few times onto SoundCloud, and I tried to set it up as like a podcast, but I found one, you have to pay for whatever service you're using, you have to pay, and it's a hassle to set up. So if it was easier, I would love to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a lot of busy work for me to put it on iTunes, but it's just,
it shouldn't be so hard.
I agree. I mean, but
Apple should actually they should do with audio podcasts what YouTube does, what Google does with YouTube, right? I reckon they should make it easy and free. And let people use their iPods and their iPhones. Like they should lower the barrier for people doing that. I would be straight on it. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, no, because that's partially why I made this podcast, is because I wanted something to listen to on my commute to the train, and I love 2.5 Miyagis, and I love this Tokyo Tonight. So I mean, I could never listen to it because
I'm also aware.
I'm not going over my data plan. Fuck that.
Yeah, and I must admit, and I became aware of it Christmas when I kind of went on a bit of a binge, catching up on watching subscriptions and so on. Thanks to this, that I realized that
for our audio listeners out there, he's pointing at his shirt that says "My Chan TV."
My Chan TV, which is kind of what I developed because I wanted to make it easier to keep up with all the people that I want to follow, like Radrey, and it was. Basically, I did realize myself that what I was doing, when I have a list of 50 videos that I want to watch, I will generally watch the shortest videos first, so you get that sense that you're knocking more videos out and you're covering more ground. You know when you want catching up on videos and then there's like 1 2-hour video in the middle of it, and then you're like stuck on this 2-hour video, which is good like if you're cleaning or doing something else. But when you're wanting to catch up, you lose that feeling like you're getting through the list, so you move it for later. So I sort of realized that, with my own show as well, I should probably cut out segments of the show where I'm explaining different topics and make those. So my project this year has been to be actually making like 5 to 10 minute video segments out of the show that I can post separately for people that don't want to sit through the whole hour or don't join live, but still find the content.
It's such busy work though, man.
Well, I still think the thing is cutting like on my iPhone using iMovie, cutting trimming a 5-minute segment out of my 1 hour live stream that I do every week. And posting that separately. I can do it on my iPhone on the train on the way to work. That's easier and it's free. It's much easier than doing a podcast. It shouldn't be. A podcast should be easier than posting another video. For some reason, YouTube makes it easier to post a video than it is to make a podcast, which is wrong, but I would be straight on the podcast thing.
Huh. Maybe that's why, because I had my business cards made up, and I wrote podcaster on that, and it always gets better reactions from people than just like, oh, he's a YouTuber, all right, another J vlogger, okay, sure, So, all right, so I guess I have to ask, how's my Chan doing? How's it going?
It's going. It's basically it sort of stops and starts. Originally, part of it was I just wanted to do a project. I help people on IT projects a lot. I give advice to people on them and stuff like that. And I kind of wanted to do something myself, and I thought it'd be a good project just for the idea of how you set up a company, how you develop something. So I set it up, and the idea I thought was good. It was going for a niche of people who care about subscriptions, which is a really small niche. And YouTube tried it out. They tried out something like MyChan. They had this feature where you could have like groupings of subscriptions, and they tried it and no one used it, and then they gave it up a few years ago. They had these collections. And so I figured like YouTube's not interested in this thing, which I want. And if I want it, I figure there must be some people that want it. I mean, 1 billion people watch YouTube. So even if like 0.1% of people want it, that's good enough for me to make an app. And I did look around, and there wasn't anyone doing anything sort of that I thought was good enough like it. So I got introduced to some devs. I said, can we do this thing? And they showed me that you can do it, and they showed me a demonstration. I said, okay, let's make an app out of that. Took a long time to get done, and it is done, and it's up. I must admit, now that it's there though, I've got the challenge. One, I haven't really promoted it as much as I meant to because I've just got a busy daily life. It's been fun building it, but now I've actually got to get the momentum on it and get people using it. The other thing is there's more things I want to do to make it better, but also, it does cost money to develop it and host it. So I do have to figure out, this is part of the original plan, is I want to try a little business thing. I want to see if I can make it work. So right now I'm trying to figure out the funding side of it so I can keep the thing up and that I can improve it and make it easier to use. Although it's already pretty easy to use. I mean, it is actually, it does what it says it does, which is it lets you really organize your subscriptions, put them into groups like TV channels, and it lets you one-click watch and catch up on your subscriptions without all the clicking around that you have to do to catch up on your subscriptions right now. Like in a short video, the annoying thing about short videos is you finish watching the video, and if you don't go back up and click on the next video you want to watch, the algorithm will take you to these random, strange videos itself, right? And it's smart. It'll take you to
find
rabbit
some
holes.
Elsagate videos there. Yeah,
and the point is like, people like me, I want to go and check in with the people that I care about, but they make it a real chore to do that. So I wanted to automate that in the same way that YouTube automates going down their own rabbit holes. So I've done it and it works, but I've got to get the word out about it. And I also want to sort of, I want to keep building on it. I want to make a mobile version of it, stuff like that. So
Okay.
I'm plugging it away. It hasn't really taken off, I'd say, but the people who are using it, I've got a solid set of users and a sort of small community around it, and I've got to get back into pushing it.
Yeah, it seems like if you're really into making lists, it's great. But
Yeah.
if you're not into making lists, then, well, I don't know.
Well, I had a situation where I had 1,000 subscriptions, so it was just unmanageable, and I couldn't find the content that I wanted within it. So that was a way
Yeah,
for
that's
me to,
annoying. It really is.
and I also added functionality as I did this, where I realized, like, okay, I want to unsubscribe all of these channels. I want to clean them up. These channels haven't posted for 3 years. I want to kill them. So I put that into the site. I added a whole bunch of features like that to make that easier too. So in the end of the day, but if you only have like 50 channels to subscribe to, yeah, you probably don't need the extra organization, and that's probably what most people who use YouTube are like. But if you're like that 0.1% of people that have like more than 300 channels that they subscribe to, which if you follow like the JVlog community or stuff like that, you want to follow specific people, it's a good way to sort of keep track of that. And some days you might want to watch your friends, the JVlog community, and some days you might just want to watch Philip DeFranco and honest trailers or something, right? And the point is, it lets you separate and manage and still automate what you want to watch, like a TV. So it works.
You hear that, internet? Hikosaemon unsubscribed from your channel because you don't make content anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but I tell you what, when I've got 1,000 subscriptions and I've got like 200 channels that haven't posted a video for 5 years or that have taken down all their videos.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. That's fine.
I mean, in the end of the day, it's making my subscriptions unmanageable. The fact I've got so many of them, so yeah, you can clean them up. I don't think that it's sacred if someone's not posting. Why do you need to be subscribed to them?
Yeah. Do you think that YouTube's kind of slowly phasing out the subscription button, kind of?
They were, and they brought it back. So I do track all the YouTube creator updates, and they have, because they brought back on the bill. So they realized that there's a lot of people like me that are drowning in too many old and outdated subscriptions, and they were moving towards getting rid of it and having like the algorithm controlling everything, and there was a backlash against it. So then they introduced this, now everyone says subscribe to the channel and ring the bell.
Right.
With this idea of getting these bonus notifications for the subscriptions that you actually want to watch, as if that was what originally all the subscriptions were supposed to be, but they recognize that now people are too overwhelmed and it feels too spammy, so now they want to let people, do like the pity subscriptions and the actual subscriptions that people want to get notified from. So it looks like they've come back into emphasizing subscriptions, but what I've seen over 10 years is YouTube goes on these cycles where they'll improve the subscriptions thing and make it more friendly, and then they'll walk back and undo it all. But right now, they're actually doubling down. They're actually making it easier to use subscriptions lately. The other thing that's really cool, by the way, is I pay for the premium thing, which just became available in Japan. I wanted to watch Cobra Kai. And if you pay for premium YouTube, it's expensive. But if you pay for it, you can download videos on your mobile phone. And that that's a really great way. It's like downloading a bunch of podcasts and listening to them on the train.
Oh, really? So you'd say it's worth it?
It's funny. Like, to me, that feature should be free. You have to pay for it to unlock it. But for me, I don't care so much about the YouTube original content or the premium, or the no ads. That download feature is the killer feature, actually. So I'm using the hell out of that. There are some questions. I've got Tico Sam's got two
It's
questions.
mostly just Tikyo Sam asking a question in the chat. He says, "What is your perfect Sunday?"
Perfect Sunday.
Something that's fruitful, at least for me. It's like making a video and fucking finishing it. I guess I never can finish it. Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, back when I used to have perfect Sundays, I guess for me it would be getting up and surfing first, doing something creative or productive in the middle of the day, and DJing, playing in a club at night, which again I haven't done in years and years, but that'd be a pretty good day. I've done that before. It's pretty exhausting, but I've done it. Playing rugby or something during the day, or doing like boxing or something physical like in the afternoon, and then DJing at night. That would be good.
The Rugby World Cup or Rugby Champion?
Yeah, this year.
This year? Yeah. Everybody's talking about it. I still don't think Japan's ready for the Olympics, but whatever.
Well,
Do you think they're ready?
I think France is going to do us a favor by getting the head of the Japan Olympic Commission convicted of corruption in revenge for the gun arrest. And
Yeah, what's up with that? I was reading about that too. Okay, so yeah, there's also a Ghosn connection going back to, it all goes back to him now.
Yeah.
What's up with that in the 2020 Olympics?
So basically, when everyone was competing for the Olympics, you know how the Olympics are like super corrupt, right? Like basically the IOC, the board that gets it,
Right, like it just seems like you look at pictures of Athens, like after the 2004 Olympics, and it looks like a wasteland.
Yeah. So basically, the Japan Olympic Committee found a way to pay the dad of one of the people who decide who gets the Olympics $2.5 million.
Wait, did you say the dad?
Yeah, they paid his dad.
Okay.
So the father of one of the IOC board members that decides the Olympics has a consulting company based in Singapore that gives consulting advice to cities that want to host the Olympics. So somebody's father is like, my son is on the board and I've made a business advising people on how to persuade my son to vote for them. And I have a cheap consulting fee of $2.5 million. So basically, it's a legal way to give $2.5 million to the dad of one of the people who votes on the decision on the city. And basically, this came up like 2 years ago when it came up that the Japan Olympic Committee had paid in consulting fees for obscure consulting advice on their bid to someone who had a family connection with someone who makes the decision, and it looks like a bribe. Apparently, at that time, the Japan Olympic Committee thoroughly investigated itself and found itself completely innocent. Well, not completely innocent. The way that they phrased it was, what they did was technically not illegal. And they let themselves off the hook, so everyone was good. But apparently France was investigating this themselves, and this has been on for 2 years. Everyone knew this 2 years ago. In fact, it's dodgy as hell. But for whatever reason, France suddenly decided it's time to prosecute right after Ghosn had been through a second month of detention. And the French government is the biggest shareholder of Renault. So basically, indirectly, the French government is in control of Nissan, and Nissan's gone rogue. And the French government has been telling the Japanese government, get Nissan into line, and everyone's been ignoring them, and they've been threatening revenge. And it might not be connected, but it looks pretty connected. It looks like this is revenge.
Oh, okay, so that's the connection. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because I remember reading something about it. I'm like, what? Wait, 20 Olympics? What? It's just like, that's the worst thing about the internet nowadays. It's just like you're hearing multiple different things, and it's just like being able to debunk something. It's just, it takes effort, you know?
It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have time for this effort shit. I'm 31 years old, you know? Wait, I guess I have to ask, do you do TikTok? Are you a TikTok man?
I'm not a TikToker, although I am very interested. I am enjoying the TikTok videos that I've seen, and I think this could be your big break. Your big break, I think, could be on TikTok.
I haven't downloaded the app. I mean, I've heard things about it because like when I first saw it, it just looked like a bunch of teeny boppers, you know, posting lip sync videos.
It reminds me. So I'd watch the compilation videos that people put onto YouTube, and it's a bit like the really good Vine compilations, like.
That's what people are saying. It's like Vine or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a subset of Vine. It's actually specific to like lip syncs and stuff like that. But yeah, some of them are pretty good.
Okay, yeah, I've yet to check it out, see what that's all about. Because it just seemed like something girls did, like Purikua or something.
Yeah, it can be fun to watch.
Like,
I'm not sure.
I can't do this stuff. I don't want to get cooties.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm what the TikTok market is looking for, but I'll enjoy watching it.
All right, so something I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So here's something interesting. The most recent thing. Well, I find it interesting.
Yes, please.
At least. The most recent thing that I didn't know I wanted to check off my Japan bucket list. You know, things you've always wanted to do in Japan. This isn't okay. For the record, this isn't something I wanted to check off my list, but I recently had to go to a Japanese funeral, and that was eye-opening. That was a lot different. Yeah, no, it was. I guess it was very glad I experienced it.
Yeah,
I really like Japanese funerals because it's.
You really like Japanese funerals?
Well, I don't know. It feels like closure. You know, it's like when somebody dies in the U.S. or something, you're like, oh yeah, they died. Yeah. Forgot about that.
The next time the police come by asking questions, I'm just going to say,
God damn it. I'm trying to get emotional. I'm trying to get sentimental here.
I know, but I know a guy who really likes funerals, so he might be your guy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, what's the question?
I guess the question here is, Do you still have anything on your Japan bucket list? I mean, you've gotten married in Japan. You've done an izakaya in Japan. Or at least these are the things I've always wanted to do in Japan, and got most of them done.
Yeah. So the old funeral bucket list. No.
Not that you want to have a funeral. It's just like that was just something I experienced in Japan that I said, "Wow, I'm really glad I experienced it."
Things I haven't done that I always thought I was going to do, or that I haven't done. No, I have undone bucket list items. One is when I came to Japan originally, I wanted to become a kikisakeshi.
Okay.
You know what it is? It's like a sake taster who can taste any sake and tell you which sake it is and where it's from. And I studied for that for a while. It's actually certificate. It's like a sommelier, like for sake.
Uh-huh.
And I had a friend in New Zealand who I helped get permanent residency, like I helped with his visa paperwork and stuff. And he had this, and he said, "Dude, you get this. You might be the only guy from New Zealand with it. It would be kind of cool." And I came to Japan and I started studying for it, and I didn't have the money to go and drink sufficiently to actually take the exam, but that was something I left undone. I did the paper study for it, where you have to learn each prefecture and what produce it has and what the characteristics of the sake are. And I kind of it's like the N1. You actually have to focus down and do some book learning and practice drinking a lot, and it's kind of fun.
It's not like being a wine critic.
It's a lot like being a wine critic, actually.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. It's a sake version of it, which I thought would be cool. I haven't done that. The other thing is I always wanted to do kendo. I've never done kendo. I always thought when I go to Japan, it'd be cool to do like the Japanese sword fighting, the Darth Vader stuff. I thought that'd be cool.
Right.
I still think it'd be cool. I don't know. Maybe if my son takes it up, I'll go to whatever school he goes to. But I still haven't done it. But that's something I'd like to do.
When they say like kendo's like a sport, it's not a sport because I don't know.
What's the argument?
It's not a sport because there is a sport. Oh, fuck, I don't know. I heard conflicting things about kendo, that they say the Olympics can't accept kendo as a sport or something because it's too Japanese, or the rules are too Japanese or something.
Yeah. I don't know this. It would be an awesome Olympic sport. I mean, compared to fencing, seriously, kendo is like. Have you seen on YouTube? They have like the police tournament, the Japan National Police Kendo tournament always gets on YouTube because. Again, if you need any additional explanation as why you should not mess with the police in Japan, you should Google YouTube the police kendo tournaments. Those guys are like full on trying to kill each other.
Okay.
So yeah, it's always it's a pretty good advertisement for it. I think it's awesome. I mean, it's. They basically start, almost punching each other and screaming and shouting and stuff like that. So it looks like gangsters fighting. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I guess finally, any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah. The one that I had a YouTube New Year's resolution, which I'm enacting, which is making shorter form content out of my long show, like doing little segments and posting them, which I've been experimenting with. And so far, it's going pretty well. I also did something else. Maybe you don't know. I used to make a series called Japan Business Time.
I didn't know that.
I had like a Japan intercultural business expert who's a friend of mine who we recorded a series talking about, the challenges of working at Japanese companies and stuff. And it's really good. I actually had a whole season of recordings with her that I'd never edited properly and posted.
Getting a phone call. Time's up.
Time is up. Yeah. So, and that's coming up next week.
All right. Well, I guess we have time to look forward to that.
Yeah. I'm being told it's time. I'm in a small space, and I'm told that this is not an acceptable time to continue. So I'm afraid.
Gotta end it. All right. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show.
Yeah.
Next week on Why Come Japan is Kid Shioryuken. If anybody knows who that is, he's a Japanese video game reviewer. I've never met him before, so this podcast will be the first time that I'll meet him. So, until then, I'm Radrey.
I'm Hikosaemon. Peace.
See ya.